Does God want you as someone under the new covenant to be tithing today, or was it only for those under the Mosaic law? Undoubtedly, we know that God did in fact command that tithes be given to the Levitical priests under the Mosaic law. But did you know that tithing is not exclusive to the Mosaic law, but was actually performed before the law was even instituted? Now, in the book of Genesis, and you can also read this in the New Testament, particularly in the book of Hebrews, you find that Abraham tithes a tenth to Melchizedek. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world does Abraham tithing to Melchizedek have anything to do with me today in the New Testament? Let me read to you a Bible passage and I'll explain to you how.
And without a doubt, the lesser is blessed by the greater. In the one case, the tenth is collected by the people who die, but in the other case, by him who is declared to be living. One might even say that Levi, who collects the tenth, paid the tenth through Abraham, because when Melchizedek met Abraham, Levi was still in the body of his ancestor. If perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, and indeed the law given to the people established that priesthood, why was there still need for another priest to come, one in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron? For when the priesthood is changed, the law must be changed also.
Now, the main point of Hebrews chapter 7 is to demonstrate 2 points. Number 1, that there's a changing of the order of the law. And number 2, there's a changing of the order of the priesthood. The author to the Hebrews tells us that if there's a changing of the order of the law, there is by necessity a changing of the order of the priesthood. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. In the Mosaic law, God instituted a priesthood after the order of Levi and commanded the other tribes to give a tenth to them. And that it is always the lesser that gives tithes to the greater, and the greater thereby blesses the lesser. And so in this case, the tribes of Israel gave a tenth to Levi, being the greater, and the greater, namely Levi, would bless the other tribes. Now, the author to the Hebrews makes this point, that Abraham is the forefather of Levi, and before Levi was even born, so to speak, Levi, through Abraham, paid tithes to Melchizedek while still being in the loins of his forefather Abraham. That implicates this truth, that Levi was the greater under the Mosaic law and the other tribes were the lesser. Now, so why is Levi, so to speak, paying tithes, which would put him in the position of the lesser, through Abraham to Melchizedek? This demonstrates 2 truths. Number 1, Melchizedek served as a type and shadow of Jesus Christ, who was to come later, who would institute a priesthood superior than the Levitical order. And number 2, that tithing to the priesthood predates the law. And therefore, that means that just because you're not under the Mosaic law today, doesn't therefore mean that you are relieved and exempted from tithing. And if he's a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, and Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek, that therefore means that tithing to that priestly order is still of necessity today. Now you might be asking, who in the world is that priesthood? Well, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 9 and following makes that explicitly clear, that he gave some apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, for the work of the ministry. And Jesus made it very clear, as well as Paul, that the hire is worthy of his wages, that those who labor in the word are worthy of double honor. They're worthy of wages. And last time I checked, wages isn't just a gift. It is their due. Lastly, let's look at what the Didache, which is an early church writing from the 1st century, has to say about you giving to your priests.
Thou shalt therefore take the firstfruits of every produce of wine press and threshing floor of oxen and sheep, and shalt give it to the prophets, for they are your chief priests. Now, last but not least, Galatians chapter 6, verse 6, Paul says, Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor.